How much money do you need to retire? Very common question that's asked. And here on the screen, this is an article from Yahoo Finance, and it's titled 401k plan participants say they need to save this much to retire. So let's find out the answer. It says if 1 million was once the consensus target, well, that's changing. A recent Schwab Retirement Plan Services survey showed that 401k plan participants now believe they must save $1.9 million. The question is, are they right? And how do you know how much you need to save? Well, here I am. I'm a certified financial planning professional. I've been helping people get into and through retirement for the last 25 plus years. And here's what I have to tell you. Studies like this are silly, right? This is basically worthless information. So what I want to do is I'm going to switch to my iPad and I'm going to help you figure out how much you need to save for your retirement. The good news is it's not necessarily that hard. So we're going to start with your goal. And the goal has to do with annual income. So I want you to think about how much money do you need in annual income to retire comfortably, right? That is step number one. Now let's imagine you do the math. You think, okay, if I'm retired, maybe your home is paid for, maybe it's not. You think about what you want to do in retirement. Remember, if you want to travel, that costs money. How often are you going to buy cars? What do your property taxes look like? Your insurance? And you kind of work through your budget. And don't forget about income tax. And let's imagine, for the sake of discussion, that using today's dollars, let's imagine you need, I don't know, $100,000 a year. Your number might be higher, it might be lower, it's okay, but you gotta start there. Okay, that's step one. Step two, sources of income. Where will you get that income? And you may get it from a number of places. For example, you might have Social Security. In fact, probably you'll have that. You may have a pension. You might even have rental income. It really doesn't matter. You just have, whatever your situation is, you have to add it up. And you have to figure out, when you look at your various sources of income, and by the way, I would highly encourage you to think about these sources of income as stable income is what we're looking for. Here's what we're not talking about. Okay, this is not talking about, maybe personal loans, right? Oh, I just know my buddy's gonna pay me back. I know my kids are gonna pay me back. Yeah, I don't think that's great to include that. Required minimum distributions, they do not count. All investment income, none of it counts unless it's coming from government bonds, because the reality is investment income changes every year. It's not stable. We're talking about stable income. Of the stable income, if we add up these items here that are stable, let's just imagine, for the sake of argument, let's say it all adds up to $60K per year. Again, it may be more or less for you. You are short $40,000 per year, right? That's your shortfall. So the question is, how much money do you need to have saved in your investment portfolio in order to generate that $40,000 a year? And don't forget, we need to grow it over time with inflation. General rule of thumb, I'll call it the ROT, and then we'll go the conservative rule rule of thumb. So the general rule of thumb is income goal times 25. How's that? That's a fun one, huh? Income goal times 25. The conservative rule of thumb is income goal times 33. Because what this really does is, this one is really equal to a 4% distribution rate. This is a 3% distribution rate. That's what it really means. We said we needed 40K per year. That's what we said we needed from the portfolio. If we say that times 25, that tells us you need to save not $1.9 million like the goofy article said. It says you need to save $1 million. And $1 million, again, if you do the math, times 4% up here equals $40,000 a year. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Let's look at the conservative approach. 40K per year times 33. That's probably around 1.3 million, give or take, probably a smidge more than that. Maybe it's 1.32, whatever, right? But if you take this times 3%, guess what you get? The same 40,000. What if inflation goes crazy? What if the markets don't cooperate? What if? Being a little more conservative here is not a bad idea at all. We said we want 100,000. That was step one. What are your sources of stable income, not up and down income, stable income? In our example, we said, maybe that's 60,000 in our little example. You find the difference between the two? We said, oh, look, that was 40,000. Great. We now know our gap, right? That's the gap. Now the simple question is, how much money do we need to have saved to plug the gap? General rule of thumb is, whatever your income gap is, 40,000 in this example, multiply it times 25. More conservative, multiply it times 33. And there you go. I'm a fan of conservative. I'd rather have you be in a position where you have a little extra money. But with that being said, they both work well. That was this week's message. I hope you found it helpful. See you again next week.